Welcome to Task 4 of Math is an Art. It is time for your teacher to assign you your art partner. Press pause, then press play when you are ready to continue. Before we start our number sense routine, let's review our hand signals. We use these hand signals to communicate our thoughts during a number sense routine. These signals are held in front of your chest. A fist means I'm thinking about it. A thumbs up means I have an answer. And the last hand signal is how you show that you agree with something that someone else said. Today's number sense routine is called fraction splat. This number sense routine was created by Steve Waborny. Look at this picture. What number does this represent? Press pause, discuss this with your art partner, then press play when you are ready to continue. This represents the number 4. We see 2 wholes and 6/3. It takes 3/3 to make 1 whole. So we see 1, 2, 3, 4. A splat has covered part of our picture. If we know we saw 4 holes, what number is under the splat? Press pause, discuss this with your art partner, then press play when you are ready to continue. Let's look under the splat to see what is missing. There are 2 holes and 2/3 under the splat. Here's our 1 hole. Here's 2 holes, and there's our 2/3. Can you think of an equation that represents this situation? Press pause, discuss this with your art partner, then press play when you are ready to continue. We started with 4 holes. When the splat covered part of our picture, we could see 1 and 1/3. To find what is under the splat, we could write a subtraction equation such as 4 minus 1 and 1/3 is equal to n. Or we could write an addition equation such as 1 and 1/3 plus n equals 4. The letter n stands for the missing number. In this case, the missing number is 2 and 2/3, so n equals 2 and 2/3. Let's try another splat. What number does this represent? Press pause, discuss this with your art partner, then press play when you are ready to continue. This represents the number 6. We can see 4 holes and 4 halves. Here are our holes, 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 halves. How many halves make a whole? It takes 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Another splat has covered part of our picture. If we know that we saw 6 holes, what number is under the splat? Press pause, discuss this with your art partner, then press play when you are ready to continue. Let's look under the splat to see what is missing. There are 2 holes and 3 halves under the splat. Here are our holes. We know that 2 halves make a whole. So here's our 3rd hole, and we have 1 half. So 3 and 1 half. Can you think of an equation that represents the situation? Press pause, discuss this with your art partner, then press play when you are ready to continue. We started with 6 holes. When the splat covered the picture, we could see 2.5 holes. So we knew that a number was hiding under the splat. We could also think of this as an addition equation. We see 2.5 holes outside the splat. We know that there is a number under the splat, which will give us a total of 6. In this case, the letter N stands for 3 1/2. For today's task, we are going to start with an artist focus. Today's artist is Lucy Mingo. Lucy Mingo was born in 1931. Lucy currently lives in Alabama. Lucy is a member of the Gee's Bend Collective. The Gee's Bend Collective are a group of African American women from Gee's Bend, Alabama. These women have gained national attention for their unique and beautiful quilting style. This quilting tradition can be traced back to the early 1800s. The tradition began with enslaved women based on a physical need for warmth. With the scraps they had available, these women created beautiful designs never seen in quilting before. During the Civil Rights Movement, these quilts helped African American women gain economic independence. Today, their quilts are displayed in prestigious museums and international galleries. Look at this quilt made by Lucy Mingo in 1979. Analyze her use of color. What emotions does this quilt evoke? Press pause, discuss this with your art partner, then press play when you are ready to continue. How do you see fractions within Lucy's quilt? Press pause, discuss this with your art partner, then press play when you are ready to continue. I see fractions represented throughout Lucy's quilt in a variety of ways. If you look at the square in the center, I see that 5/9 of the square is red and 4/9 of the square is yellow. Of course, that only works if I'm just looking at that center piece right there. There are also many strips that are pieced together around the square that remind me of fractions. Lucy Mingo said the following about her quilts. It looks like they have songs to them. You could tell stories about this piece. You could tell stories about that piece. They have songs to them. Today you will create your own work of art using strips of paste paper. First, we must make the paste paper. Paste paper is made by combining paint and paper mache paste and brushing it on white paper. You can use tools such as plastic forks and knives to add texture to your design. You will now begin making your paste paper masterpieces. You will need to make 2 pieces of paste paper. Be sure to vary the colors of the 2 pieces as you will be combining these designs to form your composition. Before creating our finished pieces, we will need to let the paste paper dry. Press pause, create your designs, then press play when you are ready to continue. Today's learning targets are: I can demonstrate that a unit fraction represents 1 part of an area model of a whole that has been equally partitioned. And I can generate and employ a variety of techniques to create a work of art or design. For this part of the lesson, you will need a sheet of blank paper, a ruler, some scissors, and a pencil. Press pause, gather these materials, press play when you are ready to continue. We will begin by measuring the width of our paper. To measure the width, we need to be sure that we line up not the edge of the ruler, but the first mark on the ruler with the edge of our paper. And when we measure, we want to look and see where does the edge of the paper end. So my paper ends in between 8 and 9 inches. So this means that our paper measures about 8.5 inches. For today's activity, we are only going to need 8 inches of our paper. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure to 8 inches, and we're going to place a guide mark at the 8-inch mark on the top and the bottom of our paper. Next, we are going to draw a line connecting these two parts. And now we are going to cut that piece of our paper off. I would like for you to focus on the starting point of your ruler, so 0 to the length of 1 inch. We are going to be measuring our paper into 1/2 inch sections today, and in order to do that, we need to understand the partitions from 0 to 1 inch. I would like for you and your art partner to determine how many parts is our 1 inch partitioned into. Press pause, discuss this with your art partner, then press play when you are ready to continue. The most common responses are 16 parts or 17 parts. In order to be exact, we have to know which one is correct. When counting the number of parts our inch is partitioned into, should we count the lines or should we count the spaces? Press pause, discuss that with your art partner, then press play when you are ready to continue. Okay, before we answer this question, let's take a look at this square that has been partitioned into 4 parts. When we partition the square, do we count the space, the area of the section, or do we count the lines, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? We should count the space, the area of the partition. The lines are our beginning and end marks, so we can't count the lines. So let's look here and let's count our partitions together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, so now we know that our inch is partitioned into 16 parts. If I want to measure 1/2 inch, how many partitioned parts should I count over? I should count over 8 because 8 is 1/2 of 16. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So my 1/2 inch is right here. As you see, we have this larger tick mark here to help us notate that that is 1/2 inch. So when we are partitioning our paper in just a moment, we can use that guide mark of we've got 1/2 inch, whole inch, 1.5, 2. And so we're going to count as we partition and use those guide marks to help us do this in an efficient manner. Now what I would like for you to do is I would like for you to take your ruler and place it at the end of your paper. And we're doing it this way so that we can be sure that we are making our marks in a straight fashion. So what we're going to do is we are going to mark 1/2 inch marks across our whole paper. So looking at that, we know we're going to mark 1 here. That's 1/2. Count with me. Now we have 2 halves. 3/2. 4/2 are 2 whole inches. 5/2. 6/2 are 3 holes. 7/2. 8/2 are 4 holes. 9/2. 10/2 are 5 whole inches. 11/2. 12/2 or 6 whole inches. 13/2. 14/2 are 7 whole inches. 15/2, and then we should have 16. I'm going to go back and I'm going to flip my paper and I am going to mark every 1/2 inch. One half, 2/2, 3/2. Okay, now that we have our guide marks, we're going to use our ruler and we're going to match our top and bottom guides. And we're going to partition our paper. So now you will continue to partition your paper using the guides that you created earlier. Okay, so now I would like for you and your art partner to determine how many parts did we partition our 8-inch paper into. Press pause, determine the number of parts, and press play when you are ready to continue. When we are talking about the partitions, we talk about the area, the piece of area. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. We have 16 partitions. So if I were to look only at this piece, what fraction of my 8-inch paper does this piece represent? This piece represents 1/16. We are going to label each piece as 1/16 because in just a moment we are going to cut them apart. So I can't label this 2/16 because when it's by itself, it doesn't represent 2/16. So let's go ahead and label all of our pieces with a unit fraction of 1/16. Okay, now you're going to take your scissors and you're going to cut your paper into strips that are 1/16 sized. Press pause, then press play when you are ready to continue. Okay, now you should have all your 16ths cut apart. Okay, so let's look at one piece. All right, so one piece is 1/16. 1/16 is our unit fraction for this whole paper because we decided to cut it into 16 pieces. And a unit fraction represents one part of a whole that's been partitioned into equal parts. So when looking at this part right here, I want you to think about the number 1 in our base 10 system. The 1 is what we call our unit because everything is built upon it. When we're looking at fractional parts, the unit fraction is what the rest of the whole is built upon. It's built upon 16ths. They're the size of 1/16. So anytime we have a numerator of 1, we know we are talking about a unit fraction. Okay, so now what I would like for you to do is I would like for you to put 3 pieces together. Okay, so you see 1/16 3 times. So what is the fraction for the entire part right here? All 3 parts combined. If you said 3/16, you are correct. This is a non-unit fraction. Non-unit fractions can be decomposed into unit fractions. So as you see 1/16, 1/16, 1/16, we could rewrite this as an equation as 1/16 plus 1/16 plus 1/16 is equal to 3/16. So to review, 1/16 is our unit fraction. Fractions with other denominators other than 1 would be our non-unit fractions, but they can be decomposed into a sum of unit fractions. What I would like for you to do is I would like for you to build a non-unit fraction with your pieces and then write an equation for your model. Press pause, build your non-unit fraction, decompose the unit fraction into an equation of unit parts, share with your art partner, press play when you are ready to continue. Now it is time to turn to your task 4 notes in your art journal. For the first example, we will represent a unit fraction. Look at the square. Press pause, discuss what the unit fraction is for this square, and shade and label the piece. Then press play when you are ready to continue. The unit fraction is 1/4. Each of these pieces represent the size of 1/4. When we are looking at a unit fraction, we are looking at just one part of the whole. Now look at the non-unit fraction model. Work with your art partner to determine what could be the non-unit fraction. Press pause, then press play when you are ready to continue. There are a few options for the non-unit fraction. Each piece is the size of 1/4. You could have chosen to shade either 2/4, as this would be a non-unit fraction because it does not have a numerator of 1, 3/4, or 4/4. I'm going to use 3/4 for my example. A non-unit fraction is composed of a sum of unit fractions. We can decompose 3/4 into 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 to give us a total of 3/4. You can see the length of 3/4 represented in our model here. Okay, now we're going to record our vocabulary for today's lesson. So our first term is unit fraction. We have talked about this several times throughout this lesson, and we are going to define a unit fraction as one part of a whole that has been equally partitioned. A unit fraction will always have a numerator of 1. A non-unit fraction is made of multiple copies or iterations of a unit fraction.
Now it is time to go back to our art project. If your paste paper is not dry at this time, skip this part of the video and go on to Math Workshop and return to this part when your paste paper is dry. Okay, so I'm just using some printed examples of different patterns of paper, but you will use your paste paper for this. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick one sheet of paper, and this paper will be cut into strips. So I would suggest on the back, you're going to measure some partitions. You could choose the size of your partition, so you may decide to do 1-inch pieces and have wide strips. You may choose to do 1/2 inch and so on. So you're going to partition your paper into parts, and then you're going to cut it into strips as we did earlier with the blank sheet of paper. So for example, I cut my sheet of paper into 1/2-inch pieces like we did earlier, so this is one of my parts. Okay, next you're going to take the other sheet of paper that you have, and you are going to decide, where am I going to weave this on my paper? And in order to do that, you've got to cut slits that are wide enough to weave this piece into. So the way that you can do that is you could just kind of not fully fold your paper, but pinch your paper and make slits like I'm doing here. Okay, now that you have these slits in your paper, you're going to be able to weave your piece in and out. So watch here what I'm doing. I'm taking my strip of paper and going over and under. And so you're going to do this multiple times across your paper so that you can weave various strips throughout it. Here's an example of one I've started. So you can see how I've taken 3 strips of paper. I decided, rather than doing it along this length as I did in the sample we just did, I did it this way. You can choose that. You can alternate as well. However, you're going to choose several pieces. However many pieces you want, you can do as many as you would like. But I would at least do 3 pieces, and you're going to weave them in and out of your paper. And when you finish, you'll have this nice pattern paper that you have woven with your other piece of pattern paper that you combined into one art project. Press pause, continue your art project, then press play when you are ready to continue.
Now it is your turn to show your teacher what you have learned through this lesson. You will complete the task for a formative assessment. Your teacher will give you more information about how you will turn this in. Press pause, then press play when you are ready to continue. We have now reached the math workshop portion of our task. As before, our math workshop will have 4 stations. At the small group station, your teacher will work with you to continue the learning about unit fractions. At the independent task station, you will complete a task without the help of your teacher. You are welcome to work with your peers on this task. At the application task station, you will apply what you have learned to a new situation. Collaborating and working with your peers is encouraged at this station. At the math game station, you will play unit fraction match.
To play unit fraction match, you're going to take your cards and you are going to put them in 4 rows of 6. You're not going to be able to see all of mine, so I'm not going to place all of mine out at this time. Okay, so remember they're all face down. I've used thin paper so you can see through mine, but for your game you will have thick paper. You will not be able to see through these. So your goal is to play the game how you usually would play a game of memory. So let's say that I flip over the piece that looks like this. Okay, what fraction do we see? We see 1/2, so that's my unit fraction. In order to get a match, I would have to flip over another card. So for example, if I flip this, that's not a match. The unit fraction is going to be written in fraction notation. So since I can see through the paper, I know that this is it. However, you will not be able to see through yours. So you will just turn 2 over. If they don't match, you turn them back over and that's your turn. If they do match, you take the 2 cards and you hold on to them. The game is over when there are no more cards, and the player at the end of the game with the most cards in their hand is the winner. So let's say as you're playing the game, you flip over a piece like this and then a smiley face. If you flip over a smiley face, that simply just means you get to go again. And so you can either choose to keep this one up and turn it over another one, or you can flip this one back down and pick 2 additional cards to flip over to try again for a match.
It is now time to begin Math Workshop. Press pause. When you are ready to continue, press play. Congratulations! You have now reached the end of Task 4. Today we discovered that there are unit fractions and non-unit fractions. Unit fractions are fractions with a numerator of 1. Non-unit fractions are composed of a number of these unit pieces. We hope you enjoyed Task 4. See you next time for Task 5.